All right, popping back in for another segment. So we just gave our pound for pound list, and now we want to talk about why on I believe September 30th, right? That's the day of the fight. That as soon as the bell ring, Jamel Charlo will no longer be an undisputed champion out there. So Boston, can you, before we break down the segment, can you kind of educate the audience on what exactly is going on with the WBO?
We're to be honest, we're a little bit behind the news cycle on this because of our schedule. But for those of you who haven't seen, the WBO has essentially ruled that Jamel Charlo will be the undisputed 154-pound champ up until the bell rings for round number 1 of his 168-pound fight against Canelo Alvarez. At that time, Tszyu will be elevated to the full WBO champ at 154 pounds. That's basically the synopsis there. And there's a lot of YouTube personalities that are running around talking about how this is unfair. I want to remind the audience though that Tszyu and Jamel Charlo had a signed fight, right? It wasn't as though Tszyu. It wasn't like Tszyu was named the mandatory, or the mandatory was called, and then they were going back and forth on Twitter waiting to actually get a fight.
Agreement.
Tszyu and Jamel Charlo had a fight signed, sealed, and delivered, date, venue, all that. Then Jamel Charlo got hurt, right? I believe we did a show on that. I believe the WBO asked him to provide, proof of it, a whole bunch of stuff, right? So Tszyu sits around, takes dangerous stay busy fights, right? That Tony Harrison fight was a fight that I did not have Tszyu winning. But yeah, that's the big difference, right? Is that Tszyu and Charlo had a fight signed. Charlo got injured, and then Charlo bailed out, which also proves that the boxing gods are not without a sense of irony, right? Because for years and years and years, Jamel Charlo has shitted on Demetrius Andrade for pulling out of a fight that they had signed several years ago. Without getting into all the minutia, Demetrius bounced on that fight for financial reasons, and he pulled out to pursue a more lucrative opportunity. Lo and behold, Jamel Charlo winds up doing the same exact thing. 10 years later? It's been a while. 10 years since the Andre Charlo debacle. So, the boxing gods are now without a sense of irony, and it proves that this sport, to its detriment, is oftentimes a business first.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say is that, so for some of the cynics out there, is that a lot of people are wondering, like, so why are they waiting till until the bell sounds in there? So part of it is for promotional reasons.
Yep.
So they want to be able to advertise this fight as undisputed versus undisputed, and they don't want to essentially have egg on their face as being the little boy who wants to kind of take his ball and go home, in this sense. So they're going to let him hold on to it. But as soon as that bell rings, he will be stripped, and we will have a new champion at 154 pounds, and that will be Tszyu. So let's talk about some of the ramifications. Like, so what does this mean for this weight division, and particularly for somebody like Terrence Crawford? Now, Terrence Crawford has stated that he essentially only wants one more fight, right? So I think he may be forced to do the Spence rematch, right? Because contractually he's obligated to do that. But
Spence will be forced to do the rematch, but whatever. Go ahead. Yes.
Well, yeah. But he essentially feels that if he is able to beat Jamel Charlo, then he essentially solidifies himself as an all-time great. There's a little bit of luster that is kind of taken away from that, because I think when he initially made that statement, he was thinking of taking on the undisputed champion and being undisputed in 3 weight divisions. Now that plan is kind of blown up in his face. So the Kadri Iran, do you think that it would be a good decision financially and even legacy-wise for Terrence Crawford to take on somebody like a Tszyu, one
Well, if he wants Charlo, he has no choice. Well, his only 2 choices is to sit out for probably a year and a full year and some months, then wait for it, or go ahead and knock out the only obstacle in facing Charlo at 154. But then you have the other monkey wrench. You hear Charlo saying that, yeah, he's coming back to 154. He got unfinished business. That's what he said out in his tweets. But we all know the Roy Jones scenario when he went up to heavyweight and then tried to come back down. It just doesn't bode well to go up to 168 and then try to come back 14 pounds to 154. Especially he's not a young chicken. How old is Charlo? He's in his like 32?
Yeah, probably about 32, 33, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, why at that point, why put your body into, you know what I'm saying, through all that for what? Because he can easily, if he's fighting at 168, then he easily can go 160. And if he really want to fight Crawford, he can fight him in the catch weight. But then that doesn't benefit Crawford for trying to be three divisions.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
he doesn't really. I've never seen any interviews where he really wanted to fight Crawford. I've even saw him where he was really just against the whole idea.
Oh, he talking shit about him now.
Yeah, he caught a lot of backlash. He was on whatever, who was it, James Harden's podcast or whatever. I didn't watch the shit, but it was him fucking twisting and twerking his neck like a little schoolgirl, talking about how he's busy and he don't want to fight and why this guy, who is this guy? All the same bullshit talking points. Problem is, all these fighters, they all live on social media, right? This is part of their fucking part of their nutritional psychological intake. They've got to be on social media. And I know that Jermell Charlo saw all that backlash from people telling him, acting like this weird energy from Jermell Charlo, who's a guy that was labeled as a guy who doesn't really duck smoke, right? So he changed his tune, a day later, now he's got unfinished business and he's all about to fight. But that was after getting a lot of blowback, I'm sure, from some of the shit he said on Jimmy Harden's podcast. So,
but like I said in the pre-taping, man, the person that benefits throughout all this is
Tszyu.
Tszyu.
Is Tszyu?
Tszyu has the ability, or he has the potential to fight in both Crawford and Charlo back to back for undisputed. He's in a great place right now, and
he wouldn't be fighting Crawford for undisputed. It'd be
no. So I'm saying that if Crawford wants to fight for unification within the next year in 2024, his only option to me is to take out Usyk.
Whoa.
Take out Tszyu, and then challenge Charlo.
Well, that wouldn't be a unification. It would just be Bud going up to challenge for his WBO belt.
No, but he has to start somewhere, right?
Knock off Tszyu, get that one belt, just like he did with the Spence fight. It'll be one belt against 3 belts.
Okay, now I see what you're saying. Okay,
when he fights Charlo. Okay, but Tszyu is in a great place, man. If he got the balls and he got the skills to do it, go ahead and knock out. If I was Tszyu, that's who I'll be calling out right now. But like, man, if you want to come up to 54, come see me. Let me dust you off, and then dust off Jermell. Or Jermell doesn't come back down, and then the belts are open for him to go get from whoever.
I don't know if Showtime and PBC and Paramount are too excited about Crawford and Tszyu, but I guess it's an option. Yeah, I don't. Tim Tszyu is a big star over in Australia. I don't know that he moves the
Man,
needle much
dude,
over
he
here.
will move. He will if he were to beat Crawford.
I also talking about if he were to beat Crawford, that's one thing. But the build up to that fight, I don't know that people are going to be clamoring for Crawford. I mean, amongst the hardcores, I'm sure the hardcores will be all
don't
about
know,
that
man.
fight.
The promotion,
all 650,000 of them. You know, they'll be
man,
clamoring for that fight. But
I think a lot of people will buy that fight just so they can see a Charlo get their ass whooped.
Well, not a Charlo.
I'm talking about Crawford Tszyu,
Oh,
not
Crawford.
Charlo. Talking about Crawford and Tszyu.
Yeah, I mean,
No. Crawford Charlo. That fight moves. That's going to move the needle more than Crawford Tszyu is going to move the needle. That'll be a fun
because
build-up.
everybody's gonna think that Zoo's gonna get washed. You know what I'm saying? So they ain't gonna buy that. But
Not just that, the motherfucker's Australian. I know, and shout out to all the Australian listeners, but yeah, Tim Tszyu is not moving the needle over here in these here United States of America.
man,
true, but if there
Despite being a good fighter, despite having good wins, right? He's got
think about
credibility.
it, an international audience, Tim Tszyu definitely moves the needle.
When you say international, just because Australia, does he have fans in other countries? Not
I'm sure
Australia?
the UK follow him. I think he got a good, strong.
You got to remember, this is
let us know in the
this
comments.
is the son of a boxing legend. All right,
an Australian boxing legend, an Australian by way of Russia, I might add. But whatever. Yeah.
I mean, thank you for thank you for sprinkling a little solid.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I mean, yeah, you're right. I get it. He is, and he's a huge star over in fucking Australia. I'm sure fucking Thor and fucking Harley Quinn, they all come out to see Tim Tszyu whenever he fights, but not over here. Tim Tszyu ain't moving no needles over here.
But it ain't about moving. It ain't about moving needles at this point. It's about if you want to be 3 times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, fair
undisputed.
enough. Okay.
He has to get that belt. You know, it don't make no sense to fight Charlo for 3 belts.
I think
you're right.
Yeah. So one is, I mean, I hate to be the cynic, but maybe that's just kind of my redefined role. Is I don't see Charlo fighting back at 154 again, and I wouldn't advise him to do it. If you've seen some of the latest footage of him, the guy is yoked. He's put on a lot of muscle, and I just checked. So he's 33 years old, and by the time that he does, but I believe he just turned 33. When is his birthday? Well, he turned 33 in May, so that means by the time that he fights, he does take a potential fight against Crawford. He'd be 34 years old, and to be able to kind of take away, 14 pounds, he already melts down to get to 154, and then after putting on this muscle, we saw what happened to Roy Jones Jr. I think that he's, if anything, he might settle in as a middleweight. I just really don't see him going back to 154. So I think the loser in all of this is really Terrence Crawford. I don't think he's going to be able to realize his dream of being a 3 division, because I think that the crown is going to be fractured with Jermell Charlo not coming back down to 154. And then he's just going to be left to kind of go around this campaign is going to take around 2 years. And from what I've seen, I don't know if the writing's on the wall, because he did do an interview, I believe this morning, where he said that the victory over Spence actually made him a little bit more hungry to kind of, chase some of these legacy fights. But I just don't necessarily see him sticking around at 154 and taking on people like Fondura and all these other fighters at 154 in a quest to collect all of these belts.
Well, Fondura's out of the picture. I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish.
No, I was saying, what say you, Boston? As far as
no, I was gonna say, well, I agree with you to an extent. Yeah, Fondura's not really in the picture, but it might as well be Fondura. I mean, a lot of these guys up here are as nondescript as some of his opposition at 140 pounds. I mean, guys like Israel Madrimov, Charles Conwell, Brian Mendoza, Bahram Mortazaliev. Yeah, I don't. It's tough for me to see Crawford sticking around to fight guys like that. And yeah, Jermell Charlo coming back down. If he beats Canelo, or if the fight is competitive, they might run it back. I mean, so you're talking about, like Randy said, a year plus out. And yeah, I could see a scenario. Crawford goes up, he fights Tim Tszyu, and whatever the outcome is of that fight, he either runs it back with Tim Tszyu if it's close and competitive, or if he loses, or he retires after the Tim Tszyu fight and retires a 2-time undisputed 4-division. Would that make him a 4-division champ? 2-time undisputed 4-division champion. If he beats
a champion at lightweight, I'll go
a champion at lightweight. He was 135, 140, 147.
That's right, because he beat Ricky Burns. That's right.
Beat Ricky Burns in the UK for that belt. Yeah, that ain't too shabby.
Yeah.
That's a good career's work right
But
there.
it won't get him as the casual one to claim the greatest fighter of all time. He won't get that acknowledgement, right?
Well, he wasn't going to get that anyway. I hate to break it to all the Terrence Crawford extremists out there who all the Floyd Mayweather comparisons, and he beat Floyd. All that stuff is great conversation to have, but the reality is he doesn't have the names on his resume to crack the top 10, top 15, top 20. I just don't see it.
That's a good conversation for another second. But
yeah.
Like the casual one, I'll bring you in a second. But I will say this, Boston. You kind of acknowledged, it was subtly, but you acknowledged that the biggest, besides, let's take Charlo out the picture. The biggest fight that could happen for Terrence Crawford at 154 is Tim Tszyu.
Yeah, it is, because these guys up here are just there's just no names. This is the hard knocks division of the sport. I mean, it's just these guys, all solid fighters, all solid fighters, just not much cachet, not much needle moving up there. So yeah, Tim Tszyu is kind of like the star of the division now that Jermell Charlo has, like you guys have said, kind of moved out, and I think he's moved out permanently. Don't see him coming back down there. Win, lose, or draw. Don't see him coming back down. And just one last point for the edification of our viewers. I believe Derek James has come out and said that they do not plan on coming in at 168 pounds. For what I remember, they plan on coming in under the 168-pound limit, is what I remember hearing or reading. I heard maybe 164.
That might give some insight into his strategy. So, because Canelo does have problems with movers. With that said, the casual ran, notwithstanding Terrence Crawford, but for Tim Tszyu, would you favor any fighter in that weight division over him? I'm saying this to say, is there a kind of a path? Because you said that he might be the luckiest guy right now in all of this that's happening. Is there a pathway that leads to him becoming an undisputed champion at that weight division? I mean, he's already out. I give like Xander, a good guy like Xander, like another year and a half, 2 years, and he's gonna be a beast. What do you think? To me, Xander, every time he steps up, it shows me how maybe unspecial that he actually.
I just think they put him under magnifying glass too fast. But if they slow him down and give him like 2 years to build, I think Lubin, you know what I'm saying? Lubin is starting to get back his old way. I mean, I ain't saying he was great. But,
I'm a big Lubin fan. I agree.
Eric Elephant Man Lubin, the guy, looked like Elephant Man against Pandora.
Pandora, broke his nose and stuff, but he's still a dog. You know what I'm saying? And Tszyu is a dog, so that'll be a good little dog fight. He ain't gonna. Tszyu wouldn't walk over Lubin
within 3 rounds. I think
Tszyu would not walk over Lubin.
I don't know about that, Cam. 3 rounds. I'd probably favor
this guy
Tszyu
got slept by Charlo in the first round.
Yeah, Charlo can crack. I mean, Charlo has knocked out almost everybody he's
No,
fought, all of his
that
top
is
guys.
no, that is not true. Charlo was, in fact, he was somebody who did not show a lot of power at first, and then he had a run. Charlo has knocked out, I think, less than half of his opponents.
Right, but the guys who he has knocked out are guys like Castaño.
Yeah. So
guys
lately, like he did, like there was a change
Yeah.
to his style. But it's funny, right? Because you didn't. I'm not trying to throw that out there because there was no. Because you like to throw out these kind of PED things, but there was no talk of that. You know, for
with Charlo, no, the Charlos, they won the genetic lottery. Both him and his brother.
Yeah, but
they
he wasn't knocking out. He wasn't knocking out people at first.
Remember,
Like,
he was with Ronnie Shields at first, right? And then he switched
That's a
from
good
Ronnie
point.
Shields to Derek James.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, the Charlos DNA, they got that. They got that special DNA. They come up short in other critical
Yeah,
areas
that brain
of life. Yeah,
that noggin
yeah.
it is, man.
Not the quickest of cats at the best of times. See what I did there? Lines only, quickest of cats. Yeah. But
with that said, and we'll close this. So
so I don't. Who is Brian Mendoza?
Brian Mendoza,
the guy that slept Fundura,
and he is he has the Reggie belt of the WBC.
Right. That's right. He ain't no walk through either.
Nah, he's not. Like I said, this is the blue collar
he ain't no
division.
walk through either.
Either is Charles Conwell. I mean, Madrimov. I mean, yeah, it ain't easy. It ain't easy in this division. But if you're Tim Tszyu, all of those guys go to Australia to fight Tim Tszyu. Every single last one of these guys, with the exception of Crawford and Jamel, right? Everyone else, you can make them take that flight to Australia and you fill out that arena and you defend your title, man. This is, he'll get laughed at. He'll get ridiculed by the YTBC, LDBC. These guys will ridicule him and call him email champ, but he will be, he'll be cashing big checks over the next year. I mean, yeah. So
all right. So with that said, we are going to get into our last segment, and because as you may not know, there is a fight coming up this weekend, and we will talk about that in 2 and 2.
It's not the Valdez Navarrete fight either. Sorry for all the hardcore Mexican fans out there. Ain't nobody watching Valdez Navarrete. Sorry. Got shit to do.